Welcome back, Hector and the bots. Hector first in the chat room today. All right, everybody. So I'm gonna work on this for an hour or two in between life chores. Turn the opacity down on that. Let's turn that off for now. I don't like seeing it. What's up, Ash? Did Mega Potato lose his job, or is he just looking for some? No, he's working the same job. But they owe a lot of money in student loans, man. His wife owes more money in student loans than I did, and she only took online classes at the Art Institute, which was notorious for charging more. Did I see the gameplay for Darksiders 3? I kind of like your rendition of the Ray. No, I haven't seen it. Of course. What's up, Daisuke? Having trouble with the height. She's taller than normal, bro. Oh, nothing drawing. Having trouble with the height. Like how tall she is. Oh. From Ruby? I don't know. Depends, man. I don't do normal people height, too much. I tend to exaggerate the top or the bottom. Like I'll make the waist a little smaller and the legs a little longer than normal. If it's for sequential art, then I'll tend to make everyone a little bit more action figure like in terms of proportions so they can fit on the page better. So it just really depends. And Ruby's more of like a manga, so you're generally drawing people 6.5 to 7 heads tall that are kind of thinner and mostly drawn from the waist up. Are you going to participate in Inktober? In that, do I have things to ink this month? Sure. I got the Darksiders pieces and commissions to do, so those will be traditionally inked. I guess I'll hashtag it Inktober. I'm just going to do what I always do. I'm not trying to push the envelope, you know. I guess past couple years I've tagged stuff Inktober. Hasn't changed my life too much. It just seems like fun, right? People get into it. I don't know. The Inktober guys kind of annoyed me a little bit. Someone was asking about why it has to be traditional inks versus digital, and their response was that, well, in digital and traditional inks you can't use undos, and undos make you a worse artist. And I'm just like, and then the people with disabilities who can't physically draw without going digital, they're like, well, I don't participate, and I'm just like, oh, whatever, guys. Like, such ridiculous argument. It's like you can have an undo when you ink. It's called fucking whiteout. And I'll show you every comic book. I got all his artist editions from the Dark Knight Returns to Spawn issue 1 and Max. They all have whiteout. It is so ridiculous, but whatever. It's just there's always a month for everything now, right? Like Movember, right, where you grow a mustache, and now it's Inktober. Yo, what's up, Psycho? It's a little too intense. I can't see what I'm doing. We should do mixed media timber, right, for September. It's just mixed media. I'll start that next year. Hey, what's going on, Jared? Just working on this penny cover. I have to sketch some of that back in. Hey, what's up, Darth? He'll never go for it. Alright. Look like you didn't draw Anubis all the way through like you often do. Did you skip it? No. See? And then the roughs went all the way through too. No, the roughs went all the way through. Worked on it last night. Hey, Kyle. I want to get Photoshop, but I'm broke. Well, the trick isn't to buy Photoshop all at once. You know, you can always get a Clip Studio Paint, you know. Kyle, can you Skype? We got to get you on Discord, Kyle, if you don't have it already set up. It's less CPU intensive. You'll sound better. I'm the cartoonist for my school this coming. Oh, congratulations. You gotta do caricatures? I hate that. Do I use a Cintiq style tablet? Yeah, I'm using a 22-inch HD, although I prefer the older 20-inch. But they don't make it anymore, so. Bum bum bum. Dum 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 dum. Bum 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 bum. Hey, what's up, Rondo? What am I drawing this on? That's a cover. It's cover art. For a book called Penny for Your Soul. It's an indie book from Big Dog Inc. They're doing a 10-year anniversary, so I've been with them since pretty much day one. If you can believe that shit. I gotta do a cover a month, man, at least for freelance. So this is what's on the plate. Yo, Kyle,
Hey, Rob.
we gotta get you on Discord, man. Take up less system resources.
I will download that once we're done with this session.
You can also call in from your phone and shit too, which is nice, you know. So if you're in the house and you want to
What?
move around, yeah, works really nice.
Why would I? Why would I want to make calls from my phone?
Sometimes the computer don't work, dude. Sometimes, sometimes. No, but seriously, it does sound better too. Like the bit rate's higher. So.
Cool.
Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. What you up to today?
Let's see. Today is doing a little bit of reading and just kind of chilling out.
Hmm.
And tomorrow I work. So that's my weekend. So I'm really glad to see the new Blade Runner is getting positive reviews.
High 90s with it was at 98 the other last night. I think it went to 97, but it was at 98 with 40 something plus reviews, which is a
Yeah.
pretty good sign. On the opposite end of that spectrum, Flatliners was at 0% with 30 plus reviews. I don't know where it's at now, but whoo, you know what I'm saying? 30%
That's so bad.
with 0% with 30 reviews, dude. Like that's not good, man. That being said, Flatliners still has a B minus cinema score. So
So where's that leave Mother?
huh?
Where's that leave Mother?
Do you think you should watch the original Blade Runner to see the new one? Here's what I think you should do, Armando. I think you should watch the 3 hour making of Blade Runner called Dangerous Days. It was on the DVD, it's the Blu-ray. People have uploaded it online, so you can find it. Leave that on. Follow the story of the making of and the explanations and what you're watching. Then I would watch the final cut, right? If you wanted to watch
Mhm.
the movie, the final cut would be the one to watch. And then whatever comes out now. I mean, I don't want to pirate or anything. I haven't looked for the Blu-ray. Yeah, it's hard to get the Blu-ray, dude. It is. But the documentary, Dangerous Days, is pretty fucking amazing. So, and they got everyone. Harrison Ford's in there. Sean Young's in there. Hampton Fancher, the original screenwriter, the original producer, Ridley. Everyone's in there, man. Like it's fucking amazing. I think Vangelis is the only one not in it. Is he dead? I don't know. I don't know Vangelis. I don't know what's up with that dude. Did he die? He may have, right? Or
I'm
is he
not
just
sure.
permanently retired? Is it spoiler heavy? Yeah, but let me tell you something, Armando. You're not gonna know what the fuck's going on if you don't watch the making of. You know when people tell me, here's the thing, Kyle. I've been thinking about this. You know how we don't want spoilers before we see movies. We want to go with the fresh mind. Do you know what the highest grossing film of worldwide of the year is?
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast. Further proving that that is not true.
Like
No,
we know how it's going to end.
we know exactly how it's going to end. We already own a version of the exact story, verbatim. Maybe in three different forms. You know, but I'm just telling you, man. Like, Blade Runner is a hard movie to get into because they didn't know how to make that movie when it came out. You know what I mean? That's why there's so many different cuts. There's a theatrical cut, there's a director's cut, there's a final cut. I just recommend to new people, like unless you like really uncomfortable long stretches of periods of time esoteric cinema, which I'm all for, man. I like 2001. You will appreciate what you're looking at if people talk about it for 3 hours before you go watch it. I just believe. And I've sat down with people who My friends, man, Kyle, who are serious sci-fi people, I put them in front of Blade Runner, and they're like, "I don't like it." I'm like, So they want to like it because the gun and the cool backgrounds and the world, but it's tough. It is a tough. And to be fair, when it came out, not a lot of people liked it either. It was video where it kind of made its mark. You know,
Well, it made kind of a resurgence when, because it got middling reviews, and then that was with the original American release, which has the happy ending and it's terrible voiceover.
which
And when they did
Guillermo
the
del Toro loves the voiceover. He's on the documentary too. I love the voiceover. I'm like, that explains why you and I. This man's hit and miss with me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean to cut you off, but I don't want to delve into Guillermo for a second there. But you're
yeah,
saying,
I was just gonna say it really didn't gain a lot of critical acclaim until I think it was what's known as the work print cut, which was really just a older version that was one of their preview versions. Uh, that got released, and at that point, I guess it made quite a bit of money.
Laserdisc. Was that around the Laserdisc time?
Uh, let's see. Trying to. I was just reading about kind of how all the different versions came about the other day, and I was just looking to see. Uh, oh, so for VHS and Laserdisc, they got the international cut, which wasn't too much different than the theatrical cut. It had more violence, and it was in 1990 that they found a 70 millimeter version that they wanted to screen for a festival, and that didn't have the voiceover or the ending, and it got like really had a lot of success, and uh, they decided that maybe they should re-release that as a director's cut.
Right.
But in the end, Final Cut's probably the way to go.
Yeah, it was complicated to adapt. Source material is seriously dense. I read the book, the novelization, which was just look, it was Dreaming of Electric Sheep with the poster art for Blade Runner on the cover. That was you know, and then you read that, and you're like, what the fuck is? I didn't know what the fuck I was reading, man. I wanted to like it, great name, love the look of the universe, and that book, man, that was one of the few books I quit on when I was a kid. I was like, it's not for Rob. Um, but when it was on, I would just leave it on because I liked the way it looked. Uh,
Yeah,
and I was able to get more into the movie when that director's cut came out. That's how I remember seeing it. Um, I think I didn't see the director's cut though until high school, like my senior year in class. I think we watched the director's cut in film class. So, uh, and then now
yeah.
there's the final cut.
I didn't see the director's cut until they released that 5-disc Blu-ray set in like 2004, 2006, something like that.
Yeah, I remember when it first came out, the final cut, right? Like
2007, sorry.
when the final cut finally came out, it came out around my birthday, and I was like, yeah, I like that. My buddy really wanted to give me something because I'm a hard person to shop for, and he's never. I own everything, and I'm like, I haven't got that yet, so he got me that, and he was super into sci-fi. I'm like, well, have you ever seen it? He's like, no. I'm like, well, we'll watch it together, and he was like, I don't like this movie. I don't like it. I don't like it. And so it was like I had to kind of go backwards with the documentary and kind of like piecemeal it. Now, like my wife wants to see the new one, and I had to explain to her, look, this is going to be a tough movie for you. So like you got to start with the making of, and I had to set up the premise a little bit, like here's how movies work. You know, you producer, generally speaking, the producer, finds something they want to adapt. The producer and the writer were sitting around getting high in L.A., and they decided to make this fucking movie. And it started with Hampton Fancher and this producer, and then it goes through like several years of fucking weird development, and then eventually you get Ridley on board, and then all the nonsense that all the not nonsense, but just all the drama too, between the original screenwriter, between Hampton Fancher and Ridley Scott, and they brought another screenwriter on board, and then all the visual effects that they had to do just to get it done. Ridley coming off. It was funny. It was like Ridley came off Alien, and he shot out in the UK. So he moves out to LA and has to deal with working with LA crews who don't like him. And then Cameron moved out to the UK and had to deal with UK crews to make the sequel to Alien. Like, wasn't that weird? Like,
Like swap places.
Yeah, they swap places. So,
But yeah, I plan on rewatching the final cut this week, and then I got my ticket for Friday morning for 2049, which I'm excited for because back when I first saw Prisoners, I saw that in the theater, and I'd never heard of the director Denis Villeneuve, or however you say his name.
Villeneuve.
And so I saw that, and I came out of the movie theater, and I was like, this guy's gonna go places.
Maybe you would think the same thing seeing The Sixth Sense. And then Unbreakable, right? And,
Yeah.
And I mean, look, he's coming back, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not always a guarantee.
No, for sure it's not. But seems like so far he's lived up to the hype, I guess. Truthfully, I didn't really like Arrival that much, but
maybe it'll grow on you, dude. Like when you have a kid or something, Yeah. I got friends who are parents who love the movie, and people who aren't. I'm agnostic on all that, so it doesn't really affect me one way or the other. But like Abyss was a movie when it first came out. There were parts I liked, but I wasn't like, this is Cameron's best work. For me at the time, it was like Alien 2 and Terminator 2. I think I liked Alien 2 more than Terminator 2. But I think I came into The Abyss being like my favorite work of his around the late 90s. Whenever that fucking DVD came out, and then I started digging up how they made the movie, I didn't realize how much went into that fucking film. You know what I mean? And like how complicated that film, when you got the whole film in front of you and you could see what he was trying to do, the final cut and everything else, you can really appreciate like, damn, that's like the most commercial version of a 2001 you can make and still remain a sci-fi / political. I mean, it's a political thriller in 2001 isn't, but it kind of is in a way. You know what I mean? Like it deals with the age of men and shit. But I mean, I don't know. It was like the perfect complicated fucking movie. That isn't. I mean, just they shot the fucking whole movie underwater, bro. I don't. You know what I mean? Like, no one's doing that. Nobody anymore. Especially after people watch how that movie was made. Like, you'd be
and how he almost killed his actors.
Yeah. Well, and himself, dude. Really, like he was under there. He was under the water more than anybody. But yeah, people are like, the making of that film was crazy. So, I mean, to take a break from The Abyss, he made Terminator 2. Think about that. It's gonna take a little bit of a break here.
Do an easy film.
Speaking of Cameron, so my buddy, his cousin his cousin's Aaron. I can say his name because he's a professional. His cousin's Aaron Hawley, and he has been working in visual effects in Hollywood for a long while, man. I want to say since like The Mummy, somewhere around there. But he does rigging,
Hmm.
and so he's worked on everything, man, because he was right at the forefront of it. Um, so he's worked on everything from the first Lord of the Rings films to, unfortunately, The Hobbit. He worked on Avatar, and so I guess he's sort of been semi-retired, living in China, teaching rigging to the Chinese studios out there, and I guess he's moving back to work on the Avatar sequels. And fans are like, "Oh, fucking those movies suck," but he's just like, "No one makes a movie like Cameron. We like the challenge," Like he's just bored with Hollywood. He really got disenfranchised with the Hobbit films, working on those.
I can't blame him.
I bring it up all the time. Like I haven't had a chance to directly talk to him, but I get my friend to just ask him this question. I want to know, like, he's just like they just kept adding tons of more visual. He's like they didn't need to do this many fucking rigs, these many visual effects. Like he just wanted everything to. He almost got the sense that the whole film was supposed to be entirely CGI. Like he was trying to compete with Avatar and then throw in the 48 frames, and he was like, he's like Cameron's very specific on what we're gonna do and what we're not gonna do. He doesn't do everything just for the sake of it. And so, have you guys read any Hellboy? Oh yeah, we own all the Hellboys, man. I've been reading Hellboy since the day it came out. Dark Horse Presents was it Dark Horse Presents? I believe so. It was in Dark Horse Presents.
Possibly.
I got
Yeah,
into it around early.
I just finished the main Hellboy series last month with the Hellboy in Hell. Just wrapped that up. So now I'm done with the main stories, and yeah, I got to go out and start the BPRD and
Yeah, it was
some
that
of
con when they
those.
launched Legend. That was supposed to be the writers, the auteurs image, as Dark Horse was pitching at the time. Like image were the guys who can actually write books and shit. And look, it was pretty cool. You got Sin City, you got Hellboy, you had Monkey Man and O'Brien, which I think they only did like 2 issues of. So, and very image-esque. The Next Man, which was the weakest of the launch, and I think Concrete, if I remember right. Can't remember if Flaming Carrot was in that, but no, Concrete was. Paul Chadwick's Concrete.
Yeah, those new omnibuses look pretty cool. I have the library editions, so I have all those stories, just not in chronological order like they're doing with the new omnibuses. But I can always read it in omnibus order and get the same experience. And
Yeah.
I like my hardback books, so I, even if the omnibuses had been out before I bought my library editions, I probably still would have gotten the library editions just for the hardback aspect.
Yeah, all the soft spine ones have broke and cracked on me. Like they did them cheaply in China.
Yeah.
The glue bound ones have cracked and broke on me, so I'm not buying any of that stuff unless I can get a uh, where they use the twine on the hardbound,
Hmm.
you know, because they're just gonna crack. They go cheap with those.
Yeah, I've been pretty impressed with Dark Horse's hardback books. I feel like they do a pretty good quality, uh, like with materials, and their prices are really reasonable too for what you get.
Especially if you go to In Stock Trades.
Hmm.
Kyle's like, shut up, Rob. Everyone's gonna go.
They're gonna buy all the books before I do.
I know I got one before you.
Yeah, they
Good.
never did restock that Spawn.
I didn't think they would.
Up. Yeah, just I mean it was limited.
Yeah, you were the one who clued me in on that, and you didn't even get one.
No, I like Spawn. I don't think I like it as much as you do, so I think I'm okay not having that book. if I had really, really, really wanted it, I would have bought it day one instead of procrastinating like I did.
Yeah, you got a point.
I learned my lesson about procrastinating on books I really do want because I was picking up the Plague of Frogs. I was going to pick up the Plague of Frogs series and just had them sitting in my to buy later list. And then they started going out of print. And I managed to get 3 of the 4 in hardback. And now I can't get book number 3 in hardback without spending like $150. I'm just like, no, I'll just get by with the paperback of book 3, even though it bugs me every time I look at my shelf and see the the paperback that doesn't quite fit in.
Yeah, there's nothing realistic about superheroes. No matter how much you want to try and like bend the rules, no such thing as the paranormal either. It's just whatever it is. I don't really go into that whole realistic thing. That's a very I don't know, man. That believable, like that, it needs to be 100% believable thing. Doesn't I don't know. It's very United States concept, very Western concept. Like one of my favorite cartoons as a kid was Banana Man. When he eats a banana, all he eats is a banana. He becomes Banana Man. Like, so,
I mean, as a kid, Popeye made sense. I'm like, well, yeah, he eats spinach. It's like it's got all sorts of vitamins and like healthy minerals. No wonder it makes him like super powered.
it's kind of a post 9/11 thing, really. This believability, ever since like the Ultimates. And then you got the MCU, which okay, sure, that's believable. So don't know if I buy into all that. Nothing believable about Bone, just a fantasy story. You know, what I want is consequences for characters' actions. I don't care about believability and like, oh, you got a superpower. Like, okay, yeah, but what happens? Like One Punch Man, there's consequences for choices. The MCU, it doesn't really matter what happens; they're just gonna come back to life in the next fucking story. Like, I'm not saying you have to kill people. I'm just saying if they're dead, there should be consequence. There should be fucking reasoning for this. Otherwise, don't go there.
Yeah, anytime they kill a major character, for me, it's like, no big deal. They'll be back in like a year.
Wasn't always that way at Marvel. Remember when Gwen Stacy died? When I was a kid. It was like when Marvel kills people, they stay dead. Unlike DC, they just keep rebooting their universe. You know, they ditched that.
That's one of many reasons I don't really read Marvel anymore. I like having comic book universes where there's consequences, and when someone dies, they typically stay dead. It's not just let's kill them off and bring them back to life just to sell some more books. That said, Marvel has put out some really good books in recent years.
You gonna bring up Vision again?
That is one I would bring up.
Waiting for it.
I thought the Brian K. Vaughan Runaways was really good. Hopefully the TV adaptation keeps some of the spirit from the comic. I like the Miles Morales Spider-Man. Thought that was well done. And guess that's really the only Marvel I've read recently that I really liked. Though I do have Miss Marvel and the Matt Fraction Hawkeye in my pile of books to read. They're supposed to be pretty good too.
Not if you're Tom. Tom has a running feud with Matt Fraction. I have had to listen to several hours on the road with Tom.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that fat Matt Fraction's so overrated. I'm like, all right, I don't even know who you're talking about. I thought Matt Fraction sounded like a sci-fi superhero. You know what I mean? I'm like, is that a
yeah.
book that I'm missing here? Like, you know, I don't know what you're talking about, Tom.
But yes, Vision's probably my favorite of those so far because it took a character I cared zero about, and I ended up loving the series.
The last Marvel book I got into a long time ago, man, that was that Spider Clan book. I like that. I like when my Spider-Man is ninjas. You know, story was all right, but that's a whole universe that I could get into.
I was more of a X-Men kid. I read a few issues of Spider-Man, but I was all about X-Men and Wolverine.
Well, we all were, man. Like that's just the era. The Avengers were a joke when we were kids. It wasn't until the Ultimates came out that people were like, "Oh, this is gonna be cool." I mean, you always knew that the core idea could be cool. I mean, Kurt Busiek relaunched it with George Perez in the late '90s, and it was a cool book to, it was cool, but it wasn't quite at the same level as like Grant Morrison's JLA reboot,
Hmm.
which Grant Morrison listens to a lot of Coast to Coast. It was just filled with crazy time travel stuff, and just the Flash just got really weird with his powers. And so somewhere between Kurt Busiek and the Ultimates is the MCU, the modern one that we know, right, from the movies.
Yeah.
But I was always an independent comic guy more than the mainstream, so I just started with reading books like the Turtles books from Mirage, and they'd have more humor in them. They're just the books. Like I'd read Batman when I was a kid. I'm like, this is just not fun, man. I don't know, like The Dark Knight Returns was the first time I read a book from Batman where I was like, oh, that shit's fucking cool. And then eventually the animated series came out, which was a good blend of fun and drama initially before the Justice League cartoon came out and turned them all into fucking just action figure battles. It's true. There used to be real drama in that cartoon, and then it just turned into like this character shows up and then they fight. I'm like, that's exactly what I don't care about when it comes to comics. I just don't care about that element of it. I don't see how that's any different than the extreme. I hate to say image, but the extreme, style of comic where it's just two guys show up, they don't get along, they fight. So it was like those kinds of books minus the shoulder pads, but same basic problem.
Hmm.
Yeah, I grew up listening to like paranormal radio, like Art Bell and shit. So every time I read Grant Morrison, I'm like, I know what he's talking about. You watch that episode too, or listen to it, watch, but it was radio. Like the first time I ever heard of the Mayan prophecy 2012 nonsense was when Windows 95 came out, because Art Bell was pissed. Fucked his whole computer up. He was talking to this scientist who lived down a volcano in Hawaii, and he was bringing up the Mayan prophecy shit. He spent the first hour of the show just complaining about Windows 95. You own any of those vinyl soundtracks? Soundtracks on vinyl? You a vinyl guy, Kyle?
I have a few vinyl, but not any soundtracks. I tried to get one of the Stranger Things uh, variant vinyls that had a cool pattern to it, and I forgot what day it went on sale, and like a week later, when I remembered, it was sold out. So no, no soundtracks on vinyl.
What about Hans? What would you get Hans Zimmer's Blade Runner 2049 score on vinyl?
Depends. I haven't heard any of it yet, so we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, it's really weird. For as much as I was into comic books as a kid, I never read a Batman comic book until last year.
Batman was not good
Well,
in the 80s, bro.
unless you count, I read the Batman Spawn crossover book,
Well,
uh, but
yeah.
the court, but Court
Sorry.
of Owls was the first actual Batman I read, which is weird because as a kid I watched like the old uh, Adam West Batman series. I had like the Batman hat, the Batman belt bag. I had the Batman
Well, the
like
movie, right?
everything. Yeah, I was into the Batman movie universe. I watched the cartoon, and I have no idea why I never gave the comic books a try.
Well, I didn't have access to the comics because we didn't have a comic book shop. But every now and then, you'd come across a spinner rack, like at a 7-Eleven or something, and I would see, oh, Batman. And then I'd open it up, and I go, this is dumb. Like, it just didn't have, I don't know what it was, man. And I wasn't a naive little kid. I had fairly decent taste as a child. Um, just didn't get, like, the idea of Batman was cool. The execution of him in most of these comics were just not for my liking.
Mm.
But like I said, I remember the first time I went to this used bookstore and they had The Dark Knight Returns right there, and I could just look at it and go, that looked different, you know?
Mm-hmm.
This is pre-movie. Yeah, this is about a year or two before the movie came out, so and I was just like, I was like begging to get it. My mom wouldn't let me.
When did that come out? 89?
It came out in '86.
80. Really?
Yeah, came out the same year as Watchmen.
Oh no, no, no. I mean the movie.
Oh, the movie came out in '89.
Okay.
Same summer as Ghostbusters 2. Which one do you
Okay.
think Rob didn't like?
I have no idea, Rob.
Yeah,
Do tell.
was not a fan of Ghostbusters 2.
I don't think anyone really was, except now in retrospect, people are like, oh yeah, Ghostbusters 2, yeah. I'm like, guys, have you watched it recently?
I gave
I
up
think
on
I
that.
think your nostalgia is
Rich liked it. He liked making fun of the voice. It's Vigos. Who loves the world? He'd do those impersonations. I'd chuckle, but I didn't give a shit for the film, man. Pissed me off. I really thought Dana Barrett should have been the new Ghostbuster. I know that sounds very, oh, you're just trying to sound progressive. Like, no, I really felt she should have been the next Ghostbuster. I didn't understand why Louis Tully was a fucking Ghostbuster. He should have been doing their taxes. You know what I mean? Running their business better than like Ray or Venkman could. That would have made a lot more sense. Hey guys, over here, and you could write this off. Like when they capture a ghost. Oh, that's pretty good. That's a deductible. Like, there could have been some tax thing with that, or helping them maybe franchise out the business. Like kids get a proton pack in the mail, like blow shit up. Like I don't know. It's a whole part of Ghostbusters, the dangers of science. You know, lethal science that I really appreciate about the first Ghostbusters and the first Back to the Future. You know, I gave him a used pinball machine full of shoddy, use empty casing full of used shoddy pinball machine parts. Gave him a shoddy casing full of used pinball machine parts. It says it so fast, you have to like. And I just didn't like how it was basically. I learned this storytelling technique when I was a kid from a movie called The Jewel of the Nile. Did you ever see Romancing the Stone? Go.
I don't believe I have.
So Romancing the Stone was this movie I watched a gazillion fucking times on cable because there just wasn't a lot on HBO when you were a kid. And so when they would get a movie, they would play it 15 times a day. Like when Return of the Jedi came to HBO, it was just on every other movie. It was Return of the Jedi. Boom, boom, boom. It was Return of the Jedi and the Big Bird movie. That fucking piece of shit. Um, I did not like that as a kid, but my little brother loved it. It's like, fuck. Um, and so Romancing the Stone was Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas, where Kathleen Turner played this novelist who wrote these stories about a guy, and then she goes to the jungle to do some research for a book and basically meets the guy she's always been writing about. And it's like this. It's a fun, like, romantic comedy. It's got a little bit of that Indiana Jones-ish, element to it. And at the end of the thing, spoilers for Romancing the Stone, they get together. Uh, so they came out with the sequel called Jewel of the Nile, which I was really looking forward to. I was like, oh, this is going to be cool. And that fucking movie's horrible. And it did this storytelling technique that I learned early on where it's like in romantic comedies where when they make a sequel, they start the movie out with them divorced or not together. So they gotta get back together again. And it's like, what was the point of the first film? Like if their whole goal of this film is that they're not gonna end up together, now I gotta watch them get back together. I don't want to watch that. That's not my kind of like. I don't show the consequences. Like it's just basically beyond feeling like it's a remake of the film you just watched. It kind of nullifies watching the original film because they're like, well, they're just not going to end up together, right? Like, and if that's the point of the thing, then let the movie be about them coming apart. But they start the movie with them not together. It's like the Metroid. I call it the Metroid formula, where it's like you get all these powers, and the game starts, and you don't get any of them, and you got to go and recollect the powers, and that's fine, but in a romantic comedy, it's not very good. And Ghostbusters is part romantic comedy, and they started where he's broken up with Dana, and the Ghostbusters aren't together. And I was just like, then they got to get back together and form the team, and then now we're the team again. And I'm like, that. It was more of a movie, that first film, about entrepreneurship. You know what I mean? Starting a business, and just happened to be this crazy premise, right? And they should have expanded it further than that versus just throwing them all in Ghostbusters jail and they have to get out of Ghostbusters jail. Didn't work for me. Didn't work for me. I felt that summer was an Alien. Was Alien 3 that same summer? I believe it was. I want to say Alien 3 was that same summer. Don't quote me on
Summer
it.
of disappointment.
Don't quote me on it, but I remember Alien 3 being like the same thing and just
Alien 3 was 1992.
92. Okay, so whenever Alien 3 finally came out, I was not happy with that, because it was like the same thing. It wasn't There were some good performances in there. It's just that whole thing is like, well, what's the fucking point? You know?
Speaking of terrible third movies, what are your thoughts on the new Terminator trilogy taking place after
Well,
Terminator
they're
2?
doing one film, and if it does
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
then they're optioning more, but they're committed to
Okay.
only focusing on one film. They were very careful to say that in the Hollywood Reporter article. They were very stressful on that. I think it's really good in that the writers' room consists of David Goyer, um, the guy who created and wrote the Sarah Connor Chronicles. I forget his name, but he's written more Sarah Connor than James Cameron ever did. A lot of people like that series. It does a lot of good stuff. So, and then someone else I don't fucking know. So I think they're committed, and they're ignoring the events of anything past Terminator 2. So, and it's got Tim Miller, who Deadpool aside directed some pretty dope ass fucking commercials when he was at Blur. I've always been a big fan of Blur Studios, that isn't me talking on my ass. I always have been. So much so that the last time I was at a Wizard World in 2007, I was talking about how fucking I love Blur. I don't know how it came up, and this dude was just like, "I work at Blur." I'm like, "You guys fucking rock!" And he's like, "Man, dude." After talking to him, he's like, "Well, you do any visual effects, 3D, man?" Because he was like, I could see parlaying that into a gig. I'm like, "No, I suck at 3D." And he's like, "Oh well, I mean, if you could do some stuff, I'm like, I hear you, I appreciate it, but you guys are amazing. It's just not my talk myself out of a gig basically, but because I just can't do it. It's not my thing.
Josh Friedman is the writer who worked on Sarah Connor Chronicles.
They got that guy, and I think that's very smart of Cameron, and I think he's learned that from what I know of the Avatar 2 thing. Like he's been building, he did that with the writers' room, and when I say writers' room, it's not like Paramount when they made the fucking writers' room for Transformers and jack shit came out of it. He actually sat down with three writers for these Avatar things, built the whole storylines with the three writers. They're all science fiction novelists. I think the last person who helped him on a screenplay, and man and woman, whatever. And then once it was all figured out, divvied the scripts up to who was strongest in what. So there was nobody was able to like save their favorite part for them or whatever. And I think they spent the last year doing story development on this. It's not like they're just announcing starting now. They've been doing it for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what it's going to take, dude. The idea of one guy making a script now, being the screenwriter for a movie, it's primarily going to go away. Because when you watch Stranger Things, that's not one fucking dude. And you watch Rick and Morty, that's not just Dan Harmon. You know what I mean? Those are 3 or 4, 7, 8 writers in a room. One person gets the credit for an episode, but it's a group effort all the way around. And so it's like the only way they can catch up to the stories that are on HBO and Netflix is to have writers' room. So, but that's something else they're trying to fight too, right? Because it's hard to manipulate 7 people. It's easy to manipulate one screenwriter. If you're a producer or a studio exec. So, even he knows that. And he wrote all of his scripts before that. So, they're in good shape. Doesn't guarantee a good movie, but it sounds smart.
Well, they did at least one thing right. Simon Kinberg is not attached to write any of it. So,
did you get a vote for confidence from Simon? So people here don't know. A little over a year ago, about a year and a half ago, Kyle, when I was up in San Diego, Kyle and I went up to the the film school in LA, and we saw a screening of X-Men Apocalypse with the screenwriter and producer of the film, Simon Kinberg. And he did a Q&A afterward. It's on the podcast, the Q&A with Jeff Goldsmith. You can listen to it there. I got real fucking sick, if Kyle remembers.
Yeah.
But Kim,
B-
go ahead.
Belt bag lady with all the keys hanging off.
Yeah, she looked like the
Oh,
junk lady from the Labyrinth film, or no, Dark Crystal. I get it confused. I get them confused. But
let's see. There's a junk lady in Labyrinth.
well, she has that what's that called? Like it's like a telescope room. Was that planetarium? She has like a planetarium.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
Dark Crystal then.
yeah. That's Dark Crystal. But Labyrinth had the junk lady. She looked like the
Yeah,
junk lady from Labyrinth. So,
yeah,
um, but Simon was there, and I just did not get the best sense of story confidence from Simon. You know, like just like trying to explain the events of that film. I did feel bad for him when they questioned him on the marketing, which had just happened. Remember that marketing thing where Mystique is being choked by
yeah,
Apocalypse? That had just come down the pike like the day or two before. So it was really new, and I think Simon was sort of sideswiped by that question a little bit, you know? Um,
yeah.
that guy in the crowd felt like he had an agenda. I don't know. Did you get that sense? I felt like he was there specifically for that, but I don't know. Um, but yeah, I have no hope for the new X-Men film that Kinberg's directing.
Dark Phoenix, I think.
Yeah, I have no hope for that. So I feel there's two X-Men universes at Fox right now. There's the last vestiges of the Singer universe, which is X-Men Apocalypse, and then there's what they did with Logan and Deadpool, you know. Yeah, there's these rumors that Dark Phoenix might be two films, you know. That would really not go well. If he's directing two films simultaneously, it will be a colossal bomb.
Yeah, he's no Russo brothers.
No, not by a long shot, and I don't get it, bro. You know, but I get he wants to direct, but why you would want your first film to be a giant, big budget X-Men film, I don't understand. You know, other than just I can do it. Like, can you really? Because you couldn't. Because like one of the things that really kind of caught me in a place of like, I don't know if this guy gets it. Was they were talking about, when they did X-Men First Class, Singer, and even though Singer was producing and Matthew Vaughn directed, but he was saying how like these are also period films. These are period films. One's gonna be in the '60s, one's gonna be in the '70s, one's gonna be in the '80s. We're really gonna capture the period of the time. And the first two did that. You had the Cold War, then you had like the Zapruder film slash fucking uh, the shadow of Vietnam and Kennedy's assassination and the sort of dismantling of the Nixon Watergate scandal part of like the '70s and Days of Future Past, juxtaposed with the future, right? Which I thought they did really well.
Hmm.
But then you get to the fucking X Men Apocalypse, and there's nothing there. Like when you watch TV, they're watching old episodes of Star Trek. They're not even watching '80s sitcoms. Like I felt like if they wanted to capture the flavor of the '80s and mutants existed, post the events of Days of Future Past, which a mutant demolished the White House, like I would have felt like they could have replaced the nuclear arms race with the mutant arms race. Like Russia could have had mutants. Like it could have like Rocky could have shown like Colossus versus Stallone. You know what I mean? Instead of Ivan Drago, you could have done shit like that. And just none of that exists. And when they asked him about that fucking element of it, the '80s element, he's like, "Well, we didn't really want to go there. There was not much to do, and it was like no, there really was." And he was talking about how like Magneto again has the reset. He's living in the woods, and they're like, well, Fassbender came up with that idea. He's like, yeah, we're in a plane. He was like, what's the furthest place we could take him? What if he has a family? He's in the woods. I'm like, dude, you can't go raise a family after demolishing the White House and nearly murdering the president. Like come on, man. Like this is for real, dude. Just a waste of fucking time. Jubilees in the 90s. Yeah, well, they weren't going to make a fucking film in the 90s. You got to remember, like the film in the 90s was supposed to be the first X-Men film. So that wasn't part of the initial plan, you know. So I don't really care if they take mutants and put them in different eras. A movie universe is a movie universe. What bugs me is when you watch a film that's completely void of anything actually having happened. And nothing happened in X-Men Apocalypse. If you never see X-Men Apocalypse and you just see whatever they're doing next, it won't matter. Nothing happens. So, and I have no faith in Simon Kinberg to make a good movie. I might be wrong. I've been wrong before.
I I hope he surprises us because I do like the X-Men property, but I don't think he's going to surprise us. I think he's going to disappoint.
If Denis Villeneuve was named the director of the Dark Phoenix saga, you know what I mean? It'd be a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
But Simon Kinberg,
Or one of 50 other directors.
yeah. Seriously, name any director from fucking Breaking Bad, and I would be more excited right now. Any one of them.
Game of Thrones or
Game of Thrones or fucking Better Call Saul at this point. For
yeah.
real. Like, anybody. You know? Even Kevin Smith. Even though I haven't been the big fan of his films, the last 7 films or whatever, but I'd still take that over. Simon Kinberg he should just stay a producer. He really should.
Yeah.
He's got that I can do it. And you know what? It might end the Singer universe, which kind of I'd be happy with at this point.
Yeah.
I think we've moved beyond it. And I wish Logan ended the Singer universe. I wish that was it,
I agree, Armando. Matthew Vaughn would make for a good director for X-Men.
Sure, well, he was supposed to direct X-Men 3, and he quit. The only thing in that movie that he had an influence on was he cast Kelsey Grammer as Beast. That was him. Then he quit. And then...
Wisely so.
Yeah, and then he never thought he'd get the offer, but he got the offer to do First Class, because Singer didn't want to do it. And he was like, really? So he felt like he could maybe make good on that, versus... And that was done well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they went and killed all of his characters in the second one. It's the only part of Days of Future Past. I'm like, really? They're all dead? The only one that's left is Mystique. Okay. But Jennifer Lawrence is back, so that's great. We get to watch more. I don't mind her as an actress, man. Mystique just was not that deep a character.
Nah.
So... And I'm like, she already got her film with Days of Future Past. We're going to use her to turn her into something. Okay, that's it. There was nothing for her to do in Apocalypse. Nothing. You could just delete every scene with her in it and it wouldn't matter. Except at the end with that whole thing that everyone knows except Magneto, which she knows. And I'm like, who cares?
The only reason Mystique got famous is because Rebecca Roman is super hot, and then they're like, let's cast one more super hot girl that is just wearing body paint.
It gave them an advantage to Professor Xavier that she could become other characters. That's a legitimate advantage. The problem is, and now there are all these fucking. Then when the one that again, it goes right back to X-Men First Class, where it's like, okay, so she's the same age as Professor Xavier. Then like, well, this is going to be a new continuity that's not tied to the 90s films. But it is tied to the 90s films. Like, it really is. Like, is this another universe or isn't it? And how do they go from being like, how do they go from looking like Fassbender and McAvoy in the 80s to 10 years later they look like Professor, you know what I mean? Like, we just got to let it go, right? Like,
yeah,
really got to let it go. So I'm just like, I'm more interested in this New Mutants movie. that's being made. Have you seen that or heard about that?
No.
Yeah, the director's pretty good, dude. I forget his name, but I was very happy with the last film he did.
No, X-Men New Mutants.
Yeah.
Josh Boone.
Yeah, Josh Boone. Good director. I
I don't think I've seen.
He's known for doing some horror stuff, dude. And it's gonna have some cool horror elements.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of his movies.
So good director. He's actually directed a film as opposed to Simon Kinberg, who merely wrote Triple X Part 2. You ever seen Triple X Part 2? You know, not as good as Triple X. Think about that. He also, you know, so. Um, all right, everybody. I gotta get going. I'll be back on tomorrow to wrap. I'll work on this for a couple hours, and I gotta get that Wolverine done tomorrow. But we're going to go spend the night at our new house before anything gets moved
Hooray!
in. So we should go try it. You know, check it out. Stay here tonight. The wife really wants to do the sleeping bag on the floor experience, so it's gonna fucking kill my back. But here we go. Don't say I don't. Don't say I don't play ball, Kyle. You know what I mean? So we got a Wolverine sketch cover to do, which should take me several hours. I gotta get that done tomorrow. But she's getting done. There's just tons of little details to add on. This is that pencil brush. Got a softer lead. And then I added this gradient map, Kyle, so you get a little purple tint in there, which I like. I like drawing with a colored pencil for some reason. Don't like just regular pencil. All right, Kyle. If you want to bother Kyle, his info's in the box below, right, Kyle?
Yep, somewhere down there.
Somewhere down there. Oh, and go plug your TV show, bro. Let everyone know right now.
Check out Mystic Cosmic Patrol. It's on Funny or Die.
Mystic Cosmic Patrol. Kyle did the cinematography for it. It's actually better than Orville. I gotta talk to you about it later. I started watching. I haven't had a chance to finish. So
I was going to bring up Orville and Star Trek right before you said that you had to go camp out at your new house.
It's better than Orville. I haven't seen Star Trek Discovery, so we'll have to see with that. But surprisingly, I laughed. So you got me there, Kyle. Like,
yeah, well, that's good. I'm glad you laughed.
I'm gonna finish watching it this week, so I have to finish this shit first. But so far, so good. So, all right, man.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for hanging out, Ash and Armando and whoever else was on here before I got on.
And Hector, whoever else. You're all the bots. Appreciate it. Peace.